Alright, so now we're going to talk about flight principles with an engine inoperative in a multi-engine aircraft. Now, a multi-engine aircraft has several benefits to it. You can have faster airspeeds, better climb performance, but there's also one negative to it. Since you have a multi-engine aircraft, you're going to have different effects when you lose one engine than in a single-engine aircraft. So today we're going to talk about the different effects of losing an engine in a multi-engine aircraft. So in a multi-engine aircraft, there's a critical engine. Now, the critical engine is the engine that, when fails, most adversely affects the performance and handling qualities of the aircraft. And the only multi-engine aircrafts that have a critical engine are the ones where both props are rotating clockwise when viewed from the pilot's seat. So in order to identify the critical engine, there's a number of factors that we have to look at. And I like to use the acronym PAST. So this stands for P factor, accelerated slipstream, spiraling slipstream, and torque. So in order to explain P factor, we have to talk about the angles of the blades on the propeller. So when you're in a high angle of attack, when you're pitching up, let's say you're climbing, the descending blade is going to be producing more thrust than the ascending blade. And that's because the descending blade will have a higher angle of attack than the ascending blade. So let's see how this will affect a multi-engine aircraft. So I'm going to draw a little aircraft right here. With two propellers. Now, in this case, the descending blade would be the blade on the right side because both props are rotating clockwise. And as you can see, the descending blade is producing more thrust than the ascending blade. Now, as you can see, on the right engine, the thrust that's being produced is farther from the center line of the aircraft than it is from the left engine. Now, with that in mind, let's say we had an engine failure and we lost the right engine. Since we lost the right engine, the aircraft is going to want to yaw to the right. And that's because this thrust is pulling it out to the right, called asymmetric thrust. Alright, now let's say we lost the left engine. Since we lost the left engine, now the aircraft wants to yaw to the left because the thrust produced by the right engine produces asymmetrical thrust, yawing it to the left. Now let's think in terms of a critical engine. When we lose the right engine, there's thrust being produced on the left side, which makes it want to yaw to the right. But as you can see, with the left engine, the thrust is being produced that far away from the center line. So it doesn't want to produce, it wants to produce a small amount of thrust, pulling it to the right. Now, as with the right engine, when the left engine is dead, the thrust center line from the right engine is pretty far away. So when the left engine is dead, the thrust from the right engine wants to yaw to the left, and it wants to produce a lot more yaw to the left than the left engine would produce yaw to the right. And because the right engine produces more yaw than the left engine would, that means the left engine is critical. So in this case, if we lost the left engine, we would lose more directional control than if we would lose the right engine. Alright, now let's talk about accelerated slipstream. Accelerated slipstream is kind of related to P factor. So, let me draw another airplane. There's the thrust on the right side from the descending blade. Alright, so as more thrust is being produced from the descending blade, it also wants to push air back over the wing. Now keep in mind that accelerated slipstream affects roll and pitch. So let's go back and say we lost the right engine. If we lost the right engine, that means the left engine is going to be producing thrust. And again, you have that moment arm from the thrust center line to the center line of the airplane. And because the moment arm is kind of small, the thrust being produced isn't going to lift the wing up as much as if it were farther away. So it wants to give a little bit of roll and pitch down towards the right. Now let's say the left engine was dead. With the left engine dead, the right engine is going to be producing thrust, and the moment arm will be slightly longer. Now since the right engine is operating, it's going to want to roll and pitch slightly down towards the left. And since the right engine's thrust is farther from the center line of the aircraft than the left engine's thrust was, that means that the left engine is critical, because with the right engine operating, it's going to put us into less directional control. We're going to be able to maintain less directional control with the right engine operating than with the left engine operating. Now let's talk about spiraling slipstream. Again, I'm going to draw an airplane. Now with spiraling slipstream, the thrust being produced by the blades are actually creating this spiraling effect of the air in a clockwise motion. So it kind of looks like this. Now as you can see, the spiraling air is moving slightly to the right, and this is due slightly because of Bernoulli's principle. Now in Bernoulli's principle, it says that when air is moving faster, it has a lower pressure. So in this case, if we're in a climb, the descending blade is producing more thrust than the ascending blade, and because the descending blade is producing more thrust, that means the air is moving faster on that side. Now since it's moving faster, it has a lower pressure, and air wants to move from high pressure to low pressure. High on this side, low on that side. So the air wants to flow from left to right in the direction of the blades that are spinning as well. So that makes a clockwise direction of airflow. Alright, so now let's say that the right engine was dead, and it was no longer producing any slipstream or thrust. Now because of asymmetrical thrust, the aircraft wants to yaw to the right. But since the left engine is producing a spiraling slipstream, it's hitting the rudder slightly on the left side. So that wants to push the nose of the aircraft to the left. To the left, and then it's kind of counteracting the asymmetrical thrust that it's producing to the right. Now let's say the left engine was dead. With the left engine dead, the aircraft wants to yaw to the left. And as you can see, the spiraling slipstream created by the right engine is kind of just going out here into nowhere. And because of that, there's no force that's helping to counteract the asymmetric thrust, pushing it to the left. And because of that, that means we have an easier loss of directional control. So in this case, the left engine is critical. Alright, the last thing in the acronym is torque. So torque is related to Newton's third law. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. I like to think of a rubber band airplane. So let's say you have the rubber band airplane and then you twist up the prop with the rubber band. Now what's going to happen if you hold on to the prop and just let go of the body of the aircraft? Well, the aircraft is going to rotate the opposite direction of which the prop would if you were holding the body. So let's relate that to a multi-engine aircraft. Actually, a better drawing would be from the back of the aircraft, so let's do that. Alright, so in a conventional multi-engine aircraft, both props are rotating to the right. And then this causes another force which wants to roll the body of the aircraft to the left. Now let's say we lost the right engine. Since we lost the right engine, the aircraft wants to yaw to the right because of asymmetrical thrust, just like with all the other things that we've been talking about. Now, since the left engine is operating, it's also producing that equal and opposite reaction to the left. Because of this, you have a force acting to the left that's counteracting the asymmetrical thrust produced to the right, so you don't have as much of a loss of directional control. Now let's say we lost the left engine. Since we lost the left engine, the aircraft essentially wants to yaw to the left due to asymmetrical thrust, and because the right engine is operating, it's creating that equal and opposite reaction, which is also making it roll to the left. So, in turn, we have the aircraft rolling to the left, but we also have that added asymmetrical thrust that's yawing it to the left. So because of this, it's producing a loss of directional control. So in this case, with the left engine dead, you have more negatives in the situation than if the right engine were dead, and that means the left engine is critical. Alright, so that's how we find the critical engine in a multi-engine aircraft. Of course, this isn't everything that we have to talk about in flight characteristics or flight principles of a multi-engine aircraft. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about VMC, which is the minimum controllable airspeed in a multi-engine aircraft. Thanks, guys.